many of you would love to be able to save money while driving your car? With the purchase of a turbocharger, you could do just that. I've been working on cars for about 10 years now. I love tinkering them and making them faster, modifying them to my liking as an extension of myself type of deal. But I also love the idea of being able to save money while increasing fuel efficiency and reducing your carbon footprint. Lars Ulrich, who is an author for the New York Times, he's also a contributor, he made the remark that the turbocharger has become the key to unlocking higher mileage without sacrificing performance, more or less. So you're able to increase your MPGs without having to sacrifice performance. A lot of, back in the early 2000s, a lot of the newer at the time hybrids, or even like the smaller compact cars, they were fuel efficient, but they weren't very powerful. They took you 0 to 60 in forever type of deal. So the turbocharger is a way to overcome that. So the turbocharger is the answer to the more power, smaller package question. It's the ideal application to increase your horsepower, while also be able to have it in a very small and compact design. So today I'll be answering 4 questions about it. What exactly is forced induction, which is what a turbocharger is based off of? So what exactly is forced induction? How does a turbocharger work? What are the benefits of turbocharging over natural aspiration, which is to say your standard engine, no forced induction? And what is the economic output, or the economic, effect of having a turbocharger over not? So let's move into the first question. What is forced induction? So forced induction at its core is the idea of forcing more air into your engine cylinders than ambient pressure can. So basically, your car from the factory has a ratio of air to fuel in each cylinder, and there's a set ratio. It's called volumetric efficiency. It's a set ratio that is put out that kind of tells you how much air and fuel you can fit into each cylinder with ambient pressure. Now, once that is maxed out, there's really nowhere you can go from there. However, with forced induction, you can actually force more air into your cylinders than ambient pressure can account for, so you're able to actually increase your power. So that's going to bring me to my next point, or my next question I'm going to answer rather, and that is how does the turbocharger work? So a turbocharger is an exhaust-driven turbine, more or less, that it acts as an air compressor, and it compresses the air coming from the atmosphere and sends it into your engine. It's a very simple design. The designs may vary, but the design may vary, but the performance, how it works, is basically the same. So operating principles: you've got the exhaust turbine here, so you have air coming from the exhaust of your engine. Cars like your and mine without a turbo, you have the exhaust pipe, so think of that pipe as connected to the backside of your engine. So instead of going right out of the exhaust, it's coming through this housing here and spinning up, and then it's leaving through your exhaust pipe. So it's coming out, spinning this up, and then you've got a shaft here that connects to the compressor housing. Now this air here is coming from outside. You're driving your car down the street, it's sucking, normally your intake is sucking in your air into your manifold, but here it's sucking it into this housing, which is being spun by your exhaust. So this housing spins up to 120,000 RPM, which is pretty fast. It spins and actually forces the air around this ducting, and actually what it does is it compresses it. So from there, you don't want, when you compress air, you're making it a lot smaller, forcing more air into a small area, but with that you're actually building up heat, and you don't want a lot of heat in your engine because you'll actually reduce your performance and your gas mileage will go down, so you want to cool it down. So what happens is the air comes through what's called an intercooler. Most cars are based off an air-to-air intercooler. There's an air-to-water intercooler, but that's a little more, we're not going to talk about that. So it goes to an air-to-air intercooler, where basically this sits by your radiator up front, so the air from outside is going through, there's cooling fins, and it's basically cooling the air that's passing through here. And the charged air, the pressurized air, gets cooled down and then shot into your intake manifold and then right back into your cylinder. So it's a very simple procedure. It looks and sounds complex, but it's very, very simple how it works. We're going to go into the benefits of forced induction now. So with forced induction, more air can be squeezed into each cylinder, and more air you can put into a cylinder, the more fuel you can spray in, and that means the more power you can produce. So volumetric efficiency over 100%, that's what we talked about. The 100% efficiency is the amount of ambient air and fuel you can put into a cylinder, the maximum amount, but since we said with forced induction you're actually compressing the air, you're able to shoot more, up to over 100% into each cylinder. So you're really boosting the power output of your engine. And with that boosted power, you're able to afford to put a smaller engine in your car versus like a larger like 8-cylinder engine. A lot of these companies now are putting smaller V6s with turbochargers in them because they can make the same power but they weigh a lot less. And that brings us in to the economic impact. So the application of a turbocharger saves fuels, excuse me. Producers can make smaller engines with the same power outputs of larger engines. So we kind of talked about that. You're able to produce a smaller engine that makes the same power as a larger engine. And a lot of companies are jumping on board, actually. Between 2012 and 2015, the percentage of cars on the road that were turbocharged from the factory went from around 7%, jumped up to about 20%. Now the introduction of electric cars are kind of making that margin kind of go down a little bit, but it's been steadily rising, and I do believe it's going to rise in the future. I don't see why it wouldn't. I think it's a great option. Fuel savings from turbos can cut emissions. With less weight, you have less fuel burning. And with less fuel burning, you're reducing your carbon footprint. You have fewer greenhouse gases. In fact, according to a Forbes study, if you were to run a car with a turbocharger for 10 years on the road, now it seems like a while, but a lot of people, it doesn't have to be the same car. If you were to run turbocharged cars for about 10 years on the road, the amount of reduction to your carbon footprint would actually equal taking a standard passenger-sized car off the road completely for a year. So if you run your car with a turbo for 10 years, you're essentially eliminating somebody else who's driving without a turbo. You're essentially eliminating their car from the road for a year. So it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it's pretty significant in the big picture of things. You got a lot smaller engines, so you're burning a lot less fuel, a lot less emissions, but you don't sacrifice any of your power. So that brings me to my conclusion, and that's that turbochargers are the answer to the more power, less weight problem. A lot of car companies are struggling now to the EPA and other agencies, Department of Transportation, are getting very strict. By 2025, they do want to hit like a 53 mile per gallon standard, which with electric cars is very much possible, but it's not going to be, in the next 7 years, it's not going to be to the point where every car is electric. So it's important to find other ways to get close to that number. Turbocharging is a perfect way to do that. So hopefully after learning about why turbos are so awesome, you're going to want to go out and get one in your next vehicle. So if there's any other questions, just let me know in the discussion board, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.